Ash through this. We'll probably have some who agree and some who don't. Alex Marlow, editor-in-chief of Breitbart News, co-author of Breitbart Business Digest, host of the Alex Marlow Show. We got Byron York, chief political correspondent at the Washington Examiner and a Fox News contributor, and Ben Domenech, editor-at-large at The Spectator and also a Fox contributor. Thanks to all of you. Alex, I'm going to begin with you. By the way, Breitbart has a spiffy front row seat in the White House press room now, by the way. I know that's not what we're here to discuss, but I think it's pretty cool. Got a thought on that?
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. It was an amazing day for us, and it was nice to get that acknowledgement from the press secretary. And it's just the old media guard is crumbling, and we're thriving in new media, and it's just it's a great moment. And the next 20 years are going to be so sweet because we're finally going to get some balance against the establishment press and favoring folks like us and, frankly, everyone on the panel today.
Yeah, everybody on the panel today. So what do you think of the RFK story, Alex? Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Yeah, I love it. I think he's really sort of a subtle genius, and the way he presented himself today is fantastic. And I'll tell you, I come from a family that practices Western medicine. My wife's a medical doctor. I'm sure I've mentioned that on the show before. And we couldn't be more excited about this pick because he's a threat to the bureaucratic establishment. We make a lot of fundamental mistakes in this country when it comes to our health, and we just keep doing the same stuff over and over again. We're over-medicated, we're overweight, we're obese. We don't talk about the right stuff. And the way that people were yelling at him today, Elizabeth Warren in particular, Bernie Sanders was yelling at him about some sort of a onesie that toddlers can buy on a website for a company he used to be a part of. It's so farcical. They want us to keep doing the same things that have made us so unhealthy for so long, and it's time for a change.
Ben Domenech, you in the same camp as Alex Marlow?
Well, I think I'm probably not as big of a fan as Alex is, but I will say that I think we've tried a couple of different ways to approach reform within the context of health policy. And the previous attempts have just not worked out for Republicans. Whenever they've had the opportunity to try to push for reforms, they've had very much difficulty in getting them across the finish line. I was at HHS as a political appointee under George W. Bush when Medicare Part D was being advanced, and I saw firsthand how difficult this can be in terms of all the different people who have their hands in the till. And then when it comes, I think, to the overall issue of understanding America's health crisis, I think RFK is a much better messenger on that than what we've seen in the past. And I would remind you, Larry, I'm sure you know this, that the previous administration's nominee for this same job, who passed very narrowly, the narrowest of any of the votes for any of his members of the cabinet, was someone who had zero experience in health policy, a total political hack in Javier Becerra. So, I mean, it's not the kind of situation where I think Democrats can really criticize this choice, given the fact that he's going to be implementing, as you said, Donald Trump's policy.
Yeah, that's the thing. Byron, I want to come back to that. Thank you, Ben, for mentioning that. Because, look, at the end of the day, RFK may be the new Secretary of Health and Human Services. That's great. But the fact is, the real Secretary of HHS is President Trump. And, by the way, related to that, and I can assure you of this, having worked inside the White House on several occasions in my time, you know, there's a lot of White House advisors who will be weighing in on what HHS should do. But basically, it's Mr. Trump who makes the policy, not Robert Kennedy. Mr. Trump is not opposed to vaccinations. Mr. Trump is a pro-life president. Mr. Trump wants to downsize Medicaid, and I guarantee other things. And he's got some other advisors like Marty McCary who are going to help do all this stuff. So people can, I know Democrats can scream bloody murder. I mean, the Democrats' head spinning. I'm going to get to that later. That's all they can do under this Trump assault of executive orders and new nominations. But the fact is, it's Trump policies. And what did RFK do today, Byron? He pledged that he would follow Mr. Trump's policies. He was very explicit about that.
Well, he did it actually quite well. I thought he was very effective when it came to talking about chronic disease and the chronic disease situation, which is something he's been talking about for a very, very long time. Look, he's a very flawed character in many ways, but he was really, I think, quite compelling when he talked about that. And you mentioned that this is something I was going to say. What was really striking about this hearing was the almost desperate desire of a number of Democrats to bring RFK down in any way possible. The Caroline Kennedy message that came out just hours before the hearing, some new scandal reporting that came out just hours before the hearing, all had the kind of classic marks of a hit job in a party that's absolutely desperate to bring him down. Now, why is that? Is it all about vaccines? I do think religious authorities sometimes hate apostates, and they view Kennedy, certainly with his name, as being that for the Democratic Party.
That's the part I liked the most, actually. I like the apostate part and the Democrat moving into the Trump. Come on, a Kennedy Democrat going into the Trump cabinet. You don't understand. You're all so young. You're young kids. I've been around so long. I've never seen such a thing as this, by the way. Tulsi Gabbard may make it 2 Democrats in the cabinet. It's been a long time. Really, John, ironically, now that I think about it, John F. Kennedy, about whom I've written a book and others have written millions of books, he had several Republicans in his Democratic cabinet, okay? Several Republicans, including Robert McNamara. All right, and McGeorge Bundy, his security advisor, was a Republican also, okay? So I'm just saying this is very interesting to me. But even, Alex, bigger picture, step back for a second, look at the politics of this. The Democrats have lost their minds in the last week. Remember when we were kids, or when I was a kid, I know it's a little different, but maybe you were a kid too. Cartoons and the figure, the stick figure, and walks out and the head spins around and spins one way and spins the other way. The Democrats are in a head spinning mode. They don't know what to do about Trump or his executive orders or his Democrats coming into the cabinet, or Pete Hegseth, or any of the above, Alex. They're crazed. They don't know what to do. They have no coherent response, and you saw it again today, as Byron just mentioned. You saw how crazed they were at this hearing.
Yeah, well, they have one move, and that's to lie. And I learned something today, and I thought I knew a lot about Robert Kennedy because I care about some of this stuff. But I didn't realize that the whole origin of the thought that he's somehow anti-vax at a blanket level was from an out-of-context clip of the Lex Friedman podcast where they cut off where he said there's no vax that he supports for everyone, which is the exact sort of nuance we need in the medical discussion right now. And all of this is based on a lie. And even me, the editor of Breitbart, I wasn't aware of where the origin came from until today, until I actually watched the hearing. That's why he was shouted down. That's why they're barking at him. They're making it sound like it's an outrage. It's not an outrage to back a Kennedy who spent his entire life thinking about these issues. And it just reveals every single strategy play they've got has been burned out, aside from maybe one. They just try to lie, cheat, and steal.
Ben Domenech, Dems don't know what to do. They do not know what to do. Well, it's fascinating to me.
I think that you saw that particularly in the line of questioning from Senator Warren. Liz Warren came onto the scene being someone who was this open, critic of corporate America, willing to stand up for consumers and the little guy. That was her rep. And then we see her now, having been on Capitol Hill, being one of the biggest recipients of big pharma money, by the way, over the years, going out there and going after Kennedy saying, will you commit to not take money from the drug companies? And he obviously laughing, saying, I don't think there's anybody who wants to give me that money. And then obviously, going after him when it came to suing drug companies. When did the Democratic Party become so in the pocket of big pharma that they're basically acting like anything that they tell us we should just automatically believe? I think in this moment, the kind of skepticism that RFK offers is something that the American people want to hear. The kind of transparency that he's promising is something that we hope to see in action.
Yeah, I think it will be transparent. That's going to be a very important point. I just say, I was watching on and off all morning long. A friend of mine, Mark Warner, Senator Mark Warner, who I may not agree with him on everything, but he's a good guy. He's a moderate Democrat, he's a businessman, former businessman. I worked with him in the intelligence committee. Mark Warner raising his voice, yelling at Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I just couldn't believe it. Some things are just, relax, take it easy. Otherwise, you're going to need some health advice if they keep doing this. Anyway, thank you all. Alex Marlow, Byron, New York, Ben Domenech. Appreciate it.